I would like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education on August 26, 2021 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, sorry. Okay, just give me a second. There we go. Okay. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being conducted in person with an option to attend remotely using communication technology. Instructions for joining the meeting and participating in public comments have been posted on the district website and sent to Watchung Borough and the Watchung Public Library, as well as to the school community through an email blast. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Members of the public also have been given the option to submit public comments to the board secretary via email or written letter no later than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Individuals submitting comments via email or written letter must state their names and addresses. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. Can we have a roll call, please?
Hold on. Sorry. Mr. Barbella?
Yes, here.
Mr. Buccarelli?
Here.
Mrs. Harvey?
Here.
Mrs. Ingracia? Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Murad?
Here.
Mrs. Posehn?
Here.
Mrs. Scharf?
Here.
We have 8 present.
Okay, are there any board member comments?
Yes, I have some tonight, President Harvey.
Go for it.
Thank you. Anal sex. Okay, I've got everyone's attention. I'd like to make a few comments. Some people in our community think the Board of Ed should be guided by politics. Our community, Watchung, the small little burb just west of Manhattan with a whopping total of 6,000 residents. Our little town, which until just recently had old pieces of wood hanging from rusting arms, announcing you had crossed into our borders. A town whose main street consists of 2 lakes bordering a traffic circle that houses the majority of our town's services. Watchung is in a booming metropolitan, and it never will be. I dare say many of us moved to this community for the quaintness and the promise that a small town can offer. To infuse national politics into our school district is a shame. It's destructive to each other, but most important, it's destructive to those I have taken an oath to serve, your children. So to those who want to infuse politics or assume it plays a role in our decisions as a board, I say this: children don't know division until you teach it to them. Our role as Board of Ed members is to advocate.
I think, did she just get frozen?
Yes.
Every
man.
child.
Oh, there we go. Michelle, you got
yes.
frozen a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You stopped at our role as board members.
Okay, great. Our role as board members is to advocate for every child, regardless of whether they live in a $500,000 home or $2 million home, regardless of their gender or color, and yes, regardless of the party of their parents. Not one time has a fellow board member asked me my party affiliation. There are many on this board, I'm sure, are of a different political affiliation than me, but I never once felt isolated or sidelined or dismissed because of it. This board, in the short time I've been on it, has always acted with transparency and honesty. And if anyone else says otherwise, I question their motives. As board members, we are not to approach this role with the hat of a Democrat or a Republican, but as a representative of your children. We are elected.
She froze again.
Sworn to do a job, not volunteers.
Michelle,
Yeah.
you froze again. You got to, we are elected.
Okay. It's the job of the council members and the mayor to manage finances of town, oversee services, decide whether to plant a tree or two on Watchung Ave. It is our job to ensure all children of this town receive the best educational experience possible, steeped in safety, social and emotional support, and opportunity. The two should not be confused. We are bound to follow state guidelines and mandates, and if we don't, we run the risk of losing state funding, impacting you, the taxpayer. When it comes to issues like sex ed guidelines, if the state says we must teach things related to LGBTQ issues or define oral and anal sex, we must do it. Just as the state requires us to stress abstinence in our curriculum. Parents, however, have the option to opt out of any part of the lesson they are morally or religiously conflicted with. Where we do have power at the local level is to decide on the materials in which the curriculum is delivered. So if you are seeing textbooks or videos or other materials being used in other districts, the assumption that these things are automatically going to be used in Watchung without debate or consideration for our children is incorrect. How another district, let's say Madison, is deciding to implement this curriculum is not necessarily reflective of the way Watchung will do this. We also have the power to make decisions that are not related to state mandates. And to this, I would like to publicly say that our curriculum committee, of which I am a part of and have received permission to speak to this topic, is not and will not be considering implementing critical race theory in the Watchung School District. Again, to repeat, critical race theory is not being considered or given any credence in the Watchung School District. I also want to be very clear that CRT is not being disguised as diversity and inclusion or social and emotional learning. There is a major difference between teaching a child to be mindful of differences versus holding differences against each other. Children should be taught how to think, not what to think. If the state government at some point in the future mandates critical race theory, we would then be left with little choice. If members of the community take issue with decisions this board cannot avoid, the fight needs to be taken to the state. Those community members, both Democrat and Republican, can now move away from the assumption and gossip with regards to this topic and focus their energy elsewhere. When I joined the board a year ago, many people asked me why. Why would you want all that work? Why would you want to be scrutinized like that? Why would you put yourself in such a public position? For those of you who don't know me, I have two girls, a rising freshman and a rising fifth grader. Like every parent, I think my kids are great. And by default, they deserve great things. One of those being a great educational experience. My older daughter had been subjected to bullying, beginning in elementary school and continuing into middle. My younger daughter was diagnosed in first grade with ADHD. I was never shy about speaking publicly about the challenges my kids were facing, the stonewall we received by past administrations when trying to deal with these issues, and the frustrations I had. When presented with the opportunity to become part of this board, I thought about a time when a member of the Watchung community posted on Facebook that I should be ashamed of the fact that I spoke so publicly about the struggles my children had. Why should any parent in this community be shamed to sit down and shut up when it came to their kids? My child with ADHD is nothing to be ashamed about, and neither is her ADHD. My bully child deserved to have an advocate if the school administration was failing her. And as I talked to others in the community, I learned there were so many parents who had the same experiences, but remained silent for the fear of being retaliated against or publicly shamed as I was. When you have neighbors who claim to be reuniters of this town, slamming parents for speaking up on behalf of the most vulnerable of our community, you have to ask who should be the ones ashamed of themselves. Tonight, I resign my position on the Board of Ed, not because the work is too hard or it's too time consuming, or even because I don't want to speak up anymore. It's simply a matter of a job relocation. My time on the board has truly been remarkable. I was welcomed and embraced wholeheartedly by many of my fellow members. The heads of each committee were always open to my questions about agenda items or willing to listen to concerns. I never once came to a board meeting without an understanding of what I was being asked to debate and vote on. I have approached the work of the board each day with your child at the forefront of my mind. I may not know your child personally, but he or she has been my priority. At every turn, I have considered how my decisions would impact students. And I proudly say that the committees I've been a part of have worked that way too. I've heard members use the phrase, "it's about the kids," countless times, and watched how cooperation and pushback can go hand in hand with each other and our administration. I have been extremely proud of the work the Operations Committee, led by Rich Bucarelli, has done this year. That committee has been thoughtful and mindful of the presentation of the proposed referendum, spending hours upon hours each month to present an offer to our town that is balanced between financial responsibility and providing future opportunities for your children. The easy thing would have been to hand in an overinflated proposal with millions in projects that would have been pork. But they did the hard work of asking questions of our consultants, soliciting feedback of Board of Ed members, and going back to the drawing board multiple times. I would like to thank Superintendent Alexis and his team for their dedication to our schools. I would like to thank President Harvey and Vice President Scharf for their leadership and consistently ensuring the direction and work this board was taking on was clearly communicated and transparent. I would like to thank each parent who has sent in emails or spoke up at a board meeting. Whether you were telling us we were doing something right or wrong, your voice was heard. I encourage parents to keep speaking up and ignore the bullies who think publicly advocating for your child is wrong. I would like to thank the person who will eventually take this seat with the reminder that this role is not about elevating yourself or representing a special interest. And finally, I would like to thank our students. I know they're not on this call tonight, but I truly believe that if you were to seek out the one thing that could best define the promise of a great Watchung, it's our children. It's been an honor to serve them. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for your service,
Miss-
Michelle.
Yeah, we'll miss you. It was great working with
Be
you.
missed. Nothing but happiness and all the best for you and David and the girls.
Yes, best
Thank
of
you.
luck.
Michelle, I remember when you used to come to every meeting as a parent and with the sole goal of making the district better. And I admired you then, and then you were on the board and you actually got to get your hands to do that. So thank you very much for your service to the community and wish you very much luck and happiness in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And for not holding back. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yes, that was definitely not a holding back speech right there. Are there any other board member comments? Okay, we're gonna move on to the superintendent remarks. George?
Thank you, Dory. First, Michelle, I want to thank you for your commitment to the district. I know firsthand how invested you were in your role as a board member and how much your efforts were dedicated to improving the students' experiences. I wish you and your family the best on this new adventure.
Thank you, George.
We're all excited for the opening of school and for welcoming back the students and staff next week. So let me begin with the district update. Let me thank the PTO in advance for kindly sponsoring the welcome back breakfast for our teachers and staff on Monday. And Mr. Pepe has been kind enough to pull up the presentation. So if we could go to that first slide, Mr. Pepe, that would be great. Okay. We'll begin with the vision. This is not new. It's something we've talked about publicly before. It's something that is guiding our work in the district. The Watchung Borough School District is committed to inspiring learners to explore, inquire, and collaborate on their joyful journey toward discovery, independent thinking, and creative problem solving. Our culture of acceptance and inclusion provides the foundation for learning and social and emotional growth. Through reflection and ethical decision-making, we continue to learn and grow, embrace differences, and prepare for an increasingly complex, ever-changing world. As I said, this is the vision statement that is guiding our district and the kinds of experiences we're creating for our students as we move forward together. The next slide contains the district goals. These were developed back in June at the board retreat by the administration in consultation with the board. Tonight, they are on the agenda to be approved along with the action plans. And I think it's worth repeating what they are. In the first one is supporting innovative instruction, design thinking, and problem solving across the curriculum with a focus on enhanced STEAM-related opportunities and scheduling options. Second, enhance student wellness and social and emotional learning with a focus on a growth mindset. Ensure a culturally vibrant, inclusive school community that values diversity, equity, and empathy. And maintain focus on financial needs of the district with an emphasis on the potential referendum and strategies for increasing revenues. Again, worth repeating, and also ones that will be at the forefront throughout the year with reporting to the board at different times throughout the year. The next slide. I want to emphasize as we return, we were very grateful for all of the cooperation for a successful year during a hybrid learning year, which was difficult and challenging and very new for everyone. With that behind us, we enter the new school year with the confidence that we know how to provide the kind of learning experience and balance that with the health and safety protocols that worked very well last year. As everyone knows, we are going back to full-time in-person learning. And I'm going to take you through some of the health and safety protocols. The next slide has a list of the different topics and areas that I'm going to talk about. So we'll talk about some things that you've heard about in the news and some things that you haven't, and also ways that we've enhanced our protocols to make sure that we can accommodate all of our learners in the building for full-time in-person learning. Because again, pursuant to the direction of the state government, we are not allowed to have an online option. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll start off the universal mask wearing indoors and on buses. This is pursuant to the executive order of the governor, number 251. We are going to follow that policy. So anyone who is on the indoor premises of the school, whether it's a student, staff member, a volunteer, or a visitor, a mask will be required indoors. We were successful with our disinfection and cleaning protocols last year, and we will continue those this year with a particular emphasis on the daily disinfection of high-touch areas. And of course, we are going to continue to teach students about the importance of hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette. But adjustments from last year. Of course, we had physical distancing in place. Last year, it was required that we had 6 feet of distancing. This year, it's recommended that we have at least 3 feet between the students in the classrooms. And we'll also be doing that in the hallways and the lunchrooms when it's possible. Of course, students will be wearing masks at lunch, which creates a situation where students will have to remove their masks for a portion of the time. We put the following strategies in place. So we are going to maximize opportunities to eat outside, as we did at Bayberry last year when we lengthened the schedule in the spring, and increase ventilation when indoors, as we did throughout the year last year. We're going to minimize time students are together, moving students out of the lunchroom into the outside portions of the campus or into the gym so that they're not sitting in the lunchroom together for a full half an hour. We also are going to require that the masks are worn when the students are not eating or drinking. Seating charts will be used, and marked spaces for distancing purposes also will be in place. The PTO is to resume lunch sales, and we will be making sure, obviously working with the PTO to make sure we are following all the health and safety protocols, and we appreciate their support in this endeavor. Okay, additional adjustments from last year include the daily screening for symptoms at home. We need everyone's cooperation at home, for the families and from the staff, of course. But instead of filling out that form each day, we are going to do it one time at the beginning of the year, and then at various times, the health office will send out reminders just to remind you about the symptoms and remind you to follow along on the protocols. But for families, as you read the opening packet and you go to Genesis to start clicking the acknowledgements, please review that document, and please refresh your recollection of the symptoms and the commitment and what we're asking you to do. The contact tracing, as I said, also is being adjusted. Normally it's 6 feet, but there is an exception based on the state guidance this year for students in the classroom setting. And that means when they are 3 feet apart and masked properly, they are free from contact tracing. Last year, it was 6 feet, with or without a mask. Something that everyone got a little too used to last year was these public notices I had to send out every time there was a positive test results. That will not continue, but unless there is cause for concern and there's a potential outbreak in school. What we will do, though, is continue to maintain the COVID dashboard on the district website, so any positive test results will be recorded there. And of course, anyone who needs to know about a possible exposure through the contact tracing process will be notified. Okay, for quarantining, the adjustment from last year is with quarantining, unvaccinated individuals only are the ones that need to quarantine based on an exposure. And the exposure out of the classroom setting is as within 6 feet for 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. That's the CDC guidance, and that has remained consistent. Also, traveling domestically and internationally will require a quarantine, and that's according to the CDC guidance, which our state and local health officials have recommended strongly. With quarantining, because we do not have an online full-time virtual option, we are planning right now to start the year with remote asynchronous instruction through Google Classroom. If a student is sick or quarantined, assignments will be posted. There will be check-ins. Questions can be asked of the teacher, and there'll be communication, but we're not going to have an online synchronous because our goal is to minimize the disruptions to the educational process. We also are anticipating fewer quarantines. If that changes, if we have more quarantines, there were only a couple of times last year where we had to quarantine an entire class. If that happens for some reason, we will reassess this if necessary. Okay, and the new requirement most recently is Executive Order 253 and the mandatory vaccination. And basically it says in a nutshell that all staff and regular visitors and volunteers must be fully vaccinated by October 18 or submit to testing at a minimum of once per week. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of questions about this, and there are a lot of details to attend to over the course of the next month, and we will be working on that. But we do plan to follow the executive order as we are required. Now, all of these health and safety protocols are based on CDC state and local health guidance and state mandates in the executive orders. They, of course, are subject to change based on the course of the pandemic. If you have questions about some of the guidance or a situation arises, we urge you to contact your child's school. Our health office was very helpful to families and to staff members last year in interpreting the guidance and figuring out situations. So I thank you for your patience and understanding. This will go on, this presentation will be placed on the website in the morning, and I'll be sending out a message to the community incorporating the presentation. Okay. I want to move to teacher recognition. And I want to recognize and congratulate first the teachers who earn tenure next Wednesday on our first day of school. So congratulations to Melissa Bianca, first grade teacher at Bayberry School, to Carolyn Mills, gifted and talented computer literacy at Bayberry School, and to Morgan Pistorius, our STEAM gifted and talented teacher at Valley View. I also want to welcome our new teachers. We had a terrific new teacher orientation this week and are thrilled with our new team members. First, we have Elizabeth Cornell, or Lizzie, who will be a special education teacher at Valley View. She comes to us from TCNJ with a BA in psychology and elementary education and an MA in special education. This will be her 4th year teaching in public schools. Victoria Esposito is our new music teacher at Valley View School. She attended Kane University and graduated with a BA in music education this past spring. This will be her first teaching job in public schools. Alessandra Lamhing, 3rd grade teacher at Bayberry School. Allie attended Montclair State University and is currently attending the University of Wisconsin as an online student in a master's program. She has a BA in English and MA in education is expected later this year. This will be her 3rd year teaching in public schools. Meralda Joseph will be our new media specialist in the Bayberry Library and also a half-time special education teacher. She attended Brooklyn College and Wagner College. She has a BA in English literature and an MA in childhood education. She's taught special education in private schools since 2013 and has been a substitute and a long-term leave replacement for us at Bayberry during the 2020-21 school year. Anna Nestor, our new art teacher at Valley View. Anna attended Lafayette and Moravian University for a joint degree that resulted in a BA in art education. She comes to us fresh out of school after having taught art to children and adults with special needs in Pennsylvania. Ashley Walgren, a new special education teacher at Valley View. Ashley has her BA in Education and History and an MA in Special Education from Rowan University. This will be her 5th year teaching in public schools. And Morgan Lovenberg, our new math teacher at Valley View. Morgan attended Quinnipiac University and earned a BA in math and English in 2020. She earned an MA in teaching this past spring. This is her first teaching position. Welcome to all of them. They were a fabulous group this week. They exhibited the kinds of teamwork and collaboration that are really going to contribute to our community and to our vision for moving the district forward. And last is on the agenda is the professional development plan for financial impact. Our plan is aligned with our district goals, which were developed, as I said, by the administration in consultation with the board at its retreat in June. The goals and the accompanying action plans are now on the agenda for approval. New Jersey law requires that the professional development plan be presented to the board for a review of financial or fiscal impact. That has been done in committees and is memorialized this evening. And that will do it for this section of the agenda. Mrs. Harvey, thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you, George. Oh, wait, do you have the professional development plan? That, I think you just did the tenured teachers and new teachers, but you have the professional development plan on here, or was that changed?
Yeah, yes, that's what I just referenced.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's okay.
I thought you were going to go into a little bit more detail. I
No.
apologize. All right. Committee reports. Michelle, please give us the committee report for human resources.
Sure. So on this agenda, you can hear me, correct? Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to make sure. We met this past week, Tuesday. It's been a long week. We met this past Tuesday, and we have a few items on the agenda this evening that are going to be personnel appointments. There are some mentors that are on the agenda for following teacher mentors. There is a student information system liaison position that we're seeking approval upon. We're also discussing this evening some home instructors. And there are 2 items, B5 and B6, which are leave replacement teachers. Before I get to that, I'll just finish up. And then there's also some appointments for before and after care, as well as extracurricular activities over at Valley View. So if there are any parents on this call this evening, please pay attention to that, as this will be a great announcement of what the extracurricular activities over at Valley View are. But I do have a B5 and B6 question submitted by one of our board members. And I was hoping, Rich Pepe, if you could speak to what the impact of leave replacements are in terms of budget or healthcare, anything like that. Is there a budgetary impact for leave replacements?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I can respond to that. As when you have leave replacements, it really depends on the nature of the leave. There are times when the leave is an unpaid leave, and you sometimes actually save money if you're paying less for the person. However, during the phase where it's a paid leave, even if it's unpaid, but it's FMLA and we're still paying for medical benefits, it usually costs extra money. That's just par for the course as far as running a school district. I think the question that I was aware of, I think was referring to paraprofessionals. Was it these 2, or was it 2 other?
It was B5 and B6.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Okay.
If the board member with that question is okay, or if not, please let me know.
It's appropriate to talk about in discussion.
Okay, yes, yeah. And also the final item is a leave resignation of our buildings and grounds director.
Okay, Rich, can you please give the Operations/Finance Committee report?
Sure. We had our meeting Wednesday, August 18th. The first item on the agenda was a cybersecurity update. I just want to tell the members of the board and the members of the community that the entire operations committee is really happy with our new technology provider, Pitbull. They've come in, they've hardened our environment against cyber attacks. And when they spoke to us last Wednesday, they talked to us about best practices and training for our teachers and staff, and are rolling out various how-to guides in addition to those recommendations. So that was a very good move to hire Pitbull. I'm going to skip the potential referendum for now, and I'm going to talk about it at the end of this. Even though it's not on the agenda, just ask for a discussion if I might, and if there's any feedback. Mr. Pepe talked to us about a utility cost recovery audit, and we told him to explore that. Mr. Alexis said that PTO food sales will continue. We deferred the counseling stipend to the HR committee. Landscaping, Mr. Walker, who actually has submitted his resignation, and Dave, we want to thank you for your service to the community and wish you the best in your new position. Mr. Walker said that he was looking to bring in a vendor who will clean up the 3-tiered retaining wall area at Bayberry at a very reasonable cost. The committee was in favor of having this work done. Now let me go to a couple other things. Shared services and Phillips Field lease. We've, I think, come to end of job on the Phillips Field lease, so hopefully we'll get that signed. And our attorney has drafted, and we have, I think, submitted the Little League lease, which is not going to be just a typical use permit, but we thought we needed something a little bit more detailed to document the roles and responsibilities of the parties. Now, with respect to the referendum, I think you guys are all up to date. And the last thing that we really hadn't discussed was what we were going to do with the Valley View field. So, Rich, if you could flash up that. So, thank you, Richard. This is the option that we, with one very big exception, that the committee agreed would be the best option. And it is basically segregating the automobiles from what I call the safe zone of students traversing from the Learning Commons to the field. And we were able to relocate the 2 ADA parking spaces to the other side of that safe zone with the other cars. So that was one thing. The other is we decided to go forward with a middle school sized basketball court. There was small, medium, and large. Middle school is medium and appropriate for a middle school. The lacrosse wall, see there at the, thank you, Rich. The one thing that unfortunately we didn't see, we didn't feel that we were able to justify given the expenses was the walking trail, which was estimated for a quarter-mile trail to cost between $350,000 and $400,000. And so the committee's recommending that we do not do that, and that we stick with our original budget of of the $350,000. Now, all of these things that we just spoke about add up to, and Rich, I don't know if you have the exact figure, but it's approximately $300,000.
Yeah, that's correct.
Very close. And we had a discussion about whether to keep the original $350,000 in the referendum, and the recommendation of both the administration and the committee was to do so because we believe we will need additional equipment, maybe soccer goals, maybe exercise stations of that sort, to sort of finish off what we think would be a very good multi-use field. Okay, so with that being said, and we can, again, I would appreciate any feedback at the end of this. We did receive our eligibility letters, all of them, from the state. And I think we've been very fortunate, or, maybe we picked the right projects, but out of the total of $14,978,371, 96% of those expenses are eligible for state aid. 4% are not, which is about $609,000. And those two projects that were not eligible for state aid, 4% of the total, were the Learning Commons that you could see there on the picture where it says courtyard, as well as the storage shed. So those two were the only ones that were denied. I think that's actually, a very favorable result. Now, with respect to where we go next, I would like any feedback on what we've decided to recommend on Valley View Field. And with that, our timeline would be to vote the next meeting to authorize a December 14th special election for a referendum in the amount of $14,978,371. So with that, I can go into details, but are there any questions, any feedback on the decisions of the operating committee? And by the way, I really want to give my personal thanks to everybody on the operating committee, Adam, Joe, Dory, and sometimes Jen, who, really, I think, put a lot of work into this and struck a very, very good balance between, really what we needed and cutting out everything that was sort of unnecessary or would not contribute to the enhanced education of the children. So I would welcome any feedback on this.
Rich, I just wanted to say that I know we had budgeted for more, but I really appreciate that we were able to go even below that for the Valley View Field. And I think the design looks really nice. I know we saw a couple that we kind of all felt, what is really going on here? And I think this came out really well. So I just want to thank everybody.
Yeah. I'd like to second that. I thank you, Rich, for your leadership on this. It was a lot of discussion, a lot of redraws, a lot of pushback, a lot of evaluation, a lot of alternatives. I don't think we could have, frankly, kicked the tire anymore. So I'm very happy where we ended. And as discussed, I think we kept coming back to the mission statement, which is, how does it benefit the children in terms of their learning, the atmosphere for their learning, without any extraneous and unnecessary costs. So I'm pleased where we landed.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. And Rich, really appreciate your leadership, and George, your guidance and suggestions along with the rest of the administration was great. It's things we didn't think about, and it was really a nice team effort the whole time.
Yeah, and I will say, like Rich said, I sometimes pop in. But whenever I do, it's just, I think it's absolutely incredible. And it's very evident to me that it's a very, very, very thoughtful process that all of you are just working really, really hard to just do the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you for providing the recap, Rich, and for all your efforts so far. I do have questions on the timeline and process. Throughout this process, I have been asking and making sure, and you've been very helpful in assuring me each step of the way, this will be presented to the public, and also for our benefit, which I feel a step, has been missed in that I've seen other districts' presentations prior to referendums, and they do have, a breakdown of the projects. I know we as a board saw that at the initial stage of potential referendum planning, but not a presentation from the architects, but a presentation from the administration presenting projects broken down with the cost and a lot of taxpayer impact analysis. So, I've been waiting for that to be presented to the board and then to the public, because a crucial step of the board's analysis and subsequent vote is stakeholder input. And I don't think I'm the only one on the board, who would prefer to have that before coming to a determination to put something on the ballot. And I thought that was I thought we were always heading in that direction. And, I had shared, I think, with maybe your committee, maybe not the whole board, but definitely the operations committee and you, Rich, when we talked about, just recently, several years ago, Chatham went through this process, and I shared the presentation, which is still up on their district website, that they were, that they did their stakeholder input forums with. And if you could speak a little to where that comes in the process before the board's vote, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. I think that we've been keeping the board, it's certainly been our goal to keep the board advised as to everything, every step of the way. And there is a school district election schedule, which is really a referendum checklist schedule, which is in the package. I'm sure you've seen it. We've been advised by our bond counsel not to talk about tax impacts until we had solidified what we were going to do. We could certainly talk about potential or general tax impacts at the next meeting with the advice of counsel before we have the vote. I have no objection to that. But if you can see on the timeline, we vote on September 23rd. A 60-day notice is provided to the county. We conduct voter education and tax impact analysis from September through December 2021. And this is like very experienced bond counsel from Wilentz and Goldman that do this all over the state and have done it many, many times. And then we have a supplemental debt statement. We have roadshow, or actually community education, which will be the administration and the architects and engineers doing certainly giving the public all of the details about the referendum. And I think it's all in that timeline. So with roles and responsibilities for the architect, the auditor, bond counsel, the Board of Education, election officials, and the financial advisor. So I think that we've done all that. So.
And the list of the projects with their costs is included as well.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that. Yep, it's all there in a lot of detail.
And I've reviewed that schedule. That was very helpful. I think that was the impetus for my question, is that I could see from that schedule that all of that happens after the board puts a bond referendum on the ballot for December 14th. So we as board members are putting it on the ballot, and then we're just saying, this is what's on the ballot. here's an explanation so that you can cast an educated vote. And I had perhaps misunderstood that in the same spirit in which we do parent input forums on schedule changes or any other topic that is of interest, we would have done something like that in advance of a vote to put the $15 million bond referendum on the December ballot. I guess that.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, as a board, it's our job to put forth what we believe to be the best and the most helpful list of projects. And we've talked a number of times about how we've been fiscally responsible about what we put forth. And then we vote on whether or not we want to put those projects forth on the referendum. At that point, once we voted, if it goes through, that's, you see on the schedule, that's when the tax impact analysis is done and voters are educated. Then it's up to the voters, once they see that information, whether they vote for it or not. But for us, we're the ones that have been elected to provide guidance on what's best for the direction of the school district, not to educate on each dollar that it'll affect each person. That will come as part of the process so that they know how to vote. The public knows how to vote.
Just wanted to say thank you to the operations committee for everything that you've done. Mr. Pepe, I sent you an email regarding the ESSER 2, what we have received and what we haven't, and thank you for your feedback. The only thing is regarding the potential referendum, under those funds, we should be able to cover HVAC and all of that. That is what I learned from the session that I was attending last week. Would we be able to apply within that 2023 window for that, or for those funds to potentially reduce some of that referendum?
I still have
Bond.
an answer to that, Amber. We can let Rich answer, but he wrote the answer back, I think. Or we could go over it.
Gave me an idea of how much we received, yes, but I was just asking if we can possibly resubmit something for whatever, you know, HVAC, because it's saying that it's the CARES Act. And I think I briefly, I apologize, I didn't have the chance to really look at it. I didn't see anything on HVAC being covered with those grant money, or was
Well,
it applied for?
The point was that we have a limited amount of dollars and we're using it all for something else. So that if we used it for, if we wanted to use it for anything that would be in the referendum, we would have to forego other uses that money was earmarked to. That was the gist of the email. And Rich, you can go into that in detail if you want.
No, my question is, did we apply for it when we submitted a grant for whatever amount we wanted? Did we apply for HVAC replacement or any of that?
So yeah, I can clarify the grant process.
Yes.
These are federal grants. They're known as entitlement grants, which is different than a discretionary grant. So these are not grants where you come up with ideas of what you need and ask for money. These are grants where you're given an allocation. So the allocations are given to us along with very detailed list of allowable costs. For example, round 2, which was the Carissa grant, only a portion of it was allowed to be used for COVID-related matters as far as facilities go. There was a earmarked amount of $25,000 that had to be used for learning acceleration. And I say had to be, it's a great thing, but we didn't have a choice on that. That's what we had to use that 25 for. And 45,000 has to be used for mental health supports. And then the remaining balance is, there's a little bit more flexibility. The total amount of money that we would have access to would be probably, if we were to spend every dollar that's not required to be spent on something specific, probably between $200,000 and $250,000. And that would be a very small amount compared to the referendum, but it is being used for things that we also are in desperate need of. right now, and some of it is being used for things like sanitization and air purification and HVAC upgrade things, smaller projects that weren't necessarily included in the referendum because we felt we could address them with some of this grant money.
Okay. I guess I was asking because New Jersey received 1.2 and we received absolutely close to nothing.
Yeah.
In reality. Okay.
It's allocated based on some formula that the state uses. It's not, we don't get to ask for a certain amount based on our need. It's just we're given a dollar amount.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm done with the operations report. Thank you for the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Jen, if it's all right, I'd like to give the curriculum committee report.
Yes, and I appreciate it. We had an unexpected appointment come up here this afternoon. So I appreciate it, Mrs. Harvey. Thank you.
No problem. I might be a little more long-winded than what you normally are, but I think there was a lot of good information, in the notes, so that parents would and community members would appreciate hearing. Okay, so the first thing we talked about on our agenda was the STEAM lab and the curriculum. So the administration gave an update on the steps taken to ensure a meaningful, developmentally appropriate STEAM curriculum and create a roadmap forward. The steps this summer included 2 visits to Chatham Middle School's STEM lab, meetings with the principal and supervisor of STEM in Chatham, conversations and meetings with IBM and IBM's review of our curriculum. Currently, a meeting between our teachers and IBM is being scheduled. An additional step included the renaming of the courses in our program to convey more accurately the kinds of experiences our students are having. Also being planned for this fall is a family STEAM night and possibly a presentation at a board meeting. A robotics/coding club also will be offered this school year. The committee and administration would like to thank the Bisignano family for connecting us with IBM free of cost to the district. The Bisignano family continues to contribute to our district, and their generosity is overwhelming and greatly appreciated. Valley View Program of Studies. The administration shared a new program of studies. Previously, there had not been one. The committee members liked the online format and concept of the program of studies. The administration also shared its idea for moving toward an elective program in place of the second ELA period currently in the schedule. This will be researched throughout the year with progress reports to the committee and board. Then we had a follow-up on the Valley View schedule. So Principal Kidd gave an update on the middle school schedule, which no longer incorporates a traditional Monday with 40-minute periods and now closely aligns with the high school schedule. Periods have been expanded to 55 minutes. An extra 30-minute math class for each student has been scheduled during period 5 flex time. For approximately 90% of the students, the extra math class meeting is on the day they drop their math class, resulting in math 5 days per week. For students who have conflicts on their drop day, the extra math class will be on a different day, still resulting in additional math time. The committee was pleased with the changes. The administration will evaluate the effectiveness of this improved rotating drop schedule during the year. Then we talked about, we had obviously a very long meeting. We talked about the Bayberry school schedule and the overview of programs, and Principal Fickner gave an update on the schedule. The goal was to use time more effectively and efficiently. One highlight is the development of the team time, where teachers will be responsible for meetings and collaboration. The committee liked that approach. Then we talked about Bayberry grading. Improving articulation about standards and communication with families was discussed. Principal Fickner will work with teachers on consistent application of the standards at each grade level. The discussion regarding communication from both schools to parents regarding grades / support needed at home took place, and Principal Fickner and Principal Kidd plan on working with staff to ensure that parents are notified within a timely manner regarding any concerns about grades, but definitely prior to report card distribution and the end of the year. There was a brief discussion about the possibility of restarting the homework club at Bayberry, and that discussion will continue at a future meeting. Then we talked about the Bayberry handwriting program. So Principal Fickner gave an update on the Foundation's handwriting program and the movement of cursive writing to 3rd grade. And she's striving for consistency across grades and classes, and plans to assess the 4th graders because of past inconsistencies with the program. Then we got into the summer curriculum writing updates. One is Accelerated Math 6 and Accelerated Math 7. Or 2, I should say. Our curriculum is being updated to incorporate the new state standards by September 2022, as required by the state. The principal gave updates on curriculum writing this summer. The accelerated math courses have been completed. The committee was in favor of the new courses, and they are on the agenda for approval tonight, I believe. The social studies and world language curriculum is part of a 2-year cycle, so they will be finalized next summer. PE, health, and the arts are scheduled to be completed throughout the school year. And a discussion about CRT, critical race theory, arose, and it was made clear that it is not incorporated into any state standard or our curriculum. And I just wanted to repeat that critical race theory, CRT, is not incorporated into any state standard or our curriculum. It is not, and I say not, again, being disguised under diversity and inclusion or equity. And I mention this because a committee member did say that she was being questioned by the community members as to whether our district was including CRT and our curriculum, and she did not necessarily know how to answer that question. So since January, CRT has not, and I say not again, been on any agenda item in the curriculum committee, and it is not being implemented in any of our curriculum. And just for the public to know, I just wanted to get, again, just the pulse of our curriculum committee to make sure that all of our board members who are on that committee are in agreement with that statement, that there has never been a CRT item on our agenda since January, and it is not being incorporated into our curriculum. So Amber, do you agree with that?
I do. Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Jen?
And as head of that committee, yes, that is entirely true.
Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear in case there were any rumors or anything out there that it is not being incorporated. There was also a discussion about sex ed, and there seems to be some concern from the community as to how sex ed is taught in our district. So we asked the administration to explain, and they did. And they explained that the district must teach to the state standards, but there are ways to hit those standards without getting specific with students. It was also explained that the health teachers send a message to parents about topics in a unit, so parents are aware of the topics in advance, and parents can request for alternative assignments if necessary. Then we got into the full year, and I believe mostly all remote students from our last school year. The principals explained that a Meet Your Teacher program on August 31st at Bayberry is going to happen, and an open house for students at Valley View on the same date. Also, tours are being scheduled with the counselors for remote students from last year and new students to help get them acclimated to the school again. Professional development plan for the 21-22 review for financial impact. The committee, I don't believe, had many questions about that. The new teacher orientation and August teacher PD schedules that was presented to us and shared with the committee. And then we also discussed the survey on religious holidays. So there was a discussion on whether to collaborate with the high school and send a similar survey out to our community. There was also a question about if the responses would be anonymous and if we should not have the survey and let the administration and board decide on whether to observe these holidays. The majority of the committee wanted to use a survey and coordinate it with the high school survey because we are a board that has pushed to make data-driven decisions and want to keep with that precedent. The administration will come back to the committee with the approach to the survey since we and they have not seen that yet. So I believe I covered everything. If I missed anything, Jen, you could just let me know, but I think I got it all.
No, you got every second of our meeting.
Oh, gosh.
And I just wanted to add, and Superintendent Alexis, I don't know if it has gone out yet to the parents. I saw maybe an email from Mrs. Kidd today, but I definitely encourage the families to take a look at that program of studies. We've never had something like that before, and it's just really well put together. It's very similar to what the high school has when your children go up there and you can read little blurbs and see what are these classes that they're taking. So I really thought it was beautiful. It was very well done.
Yes, Mrs. Scharf. Mrs. Kidd sent out the letter today and gave a brief synopsis about that. And also, it's on our website, so families can take a look. Yeah, it really is well done. Thanks to Mrs. Kidd.
Okay, Joe, can you please give us a policy committee update?
Sure. So we met on Monday, the 23rd. There's a fair amount of policy and regulation that we're going through this evening. Probably first and foremost, the most relevant one for first reading is the road forward for COVID and health and safety. And of course, thanks to Mr. Alexis, he covered the protocols at the beginning of the board meeting in terms of what has stayed the same, what has changed, and the state guidelines regarding reentry into the school this year. You will see a fair amount of other unrelated policies and regulations, most of them demarcated with the M, meaning mandatory. So these are state required policies or regulations for which there were minor, really non-substantive edits that are not very mentionable. You'll also see a section for abolished policies. Again, most of these were mandatory. Primarily, they're being abolished because they're moot. For example, previously in the prior year, when we had remote learning, we had the restart and recovery plans, things of that nature. Obviously, that's no longer in force. It's not relevant for this upcoming school year. So there'll be a fair amount of policy and regulation that's being removed, abolished for that purpose. And then we have some policies and regulations carried over from last board meeting for a second reading. Again, mostly mandatory updates, as requested or required by the state for purposes of those regulations.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Board liaison reports. Rich, is there anything as the legislative liaison?
Yes. In addition to everything Mr. Alexis articulated on return to school, there was the governor did sign an anti-hazing measure, which applies to college, high school, and middle school. So any district that has a middle school has to adopt a policy which was inspired by an incident where a student from New Jersey died during the pledging process at Penn State University due to heavy drinking and forceful hazing. So, Joe, it's a mandatory policy that we're going to have the policy committee address. That's it. I'm
Okay.
hoping it's not going to apply to our middle schoolers, or that we need not apply it to our middle schoolers, but be that as it may.
Right. Adam or Amber, is there anything under community engagement liaisons?
We're meeting with the IDEA committee on September, well, in 2 weeks from now. And that's it. Right, Adam? Or anything
Yeah,
else?
Food Truck Fridays.
Yes, Food Truck Friday.
I think we just got the email
And
for,
actually, one more thing, to all the parents, everyone needs, the PTO needs volunteers for food distribution. So please, if you can sign up, that would be great for lunch so the kids can have delicious lunch. That would be great. Thank you.
And the 9/11 ceremony that Saturday at 5:30.
okay. Kevin, is there anything under Somerset County Educational Services Commission?
I don't have any updates for this meeting, Dory. Thanks.
All right, great. Jessica, Somerset County School Boards Association.
No, they did not meet over the summer, so no update again.
And Amber, New Jersey School Board Association.
No updates. Their next meeting is October 1st.
Okay, we're going to go to community engagement. Mrs. Ruperto Ferrara. Is there? I'm sorry if I pronounced your name, your first part of your name wrong. But is there any update for the PTO? And please just raise your hand so we can unmute you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dory. Yes, so right now we are very appreciative of having all of our parent volunteers coming along and our teachers and staff. Keep in mind that with your volunteering, you're helping to help interact and have the enjoyment of your kids. You become friends with other parents, and then you accomplish things that will help impact our children. We need your ideas and energy. Come on Tuesday as of 9 a.m. at Bayberry to meet us at Meeting the Parents. We are currently looking for, like Amber said, for some lunch volunteers for both Bayberry and Valley View. As Mr. Alexis also said, we will be continuing with our food sales 5 days a week this year. We're also looking for volunteers for bus chaperones for our kindergartners on the first day of school, and also for chaperone drivers. So please help us out, and we're looking forward to having a healthy and happy school year. And continue, like everyone said, with our Food Truck Fridays at Bayberry from 4 to 8. Thank you very much, Dory.
No problem. Thank you. Mrs. Kokiata, is there an update from WEF or anyone here to give an update for WEF? Okay, Ms. Newsome, is there any update for CPAG, or is there anyone here from CPAG to give an update? Okay, and Ms. Williams, is there any update for the Watchung IDEA? Or is there anyone here from the Watchung IDEA to give an update? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so we're going to go and move on to comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Comments submitted to the board secretary prior to the meeting will be read first. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Mr. Pepe, can you please read the statement due to the recording of this meeting?
Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. We have 2 people in line. Click to ask to unmute. Oh, wait, there we go.
Yeah, hi, it's Bruce Ruck, 13 Lakeview Avenue, Watchung. I may have misunderstood something because I joined a few moments late, but I joined when you were talking about the potential tax implications of the bond, where the current board members themselves, did I misunderstand, do not know the tax implications to the homeowners of the town? If that's the case, I think that's a fiduciary failure. How can a board not know the potential implications to the community at which it is responsible to the homeowners? We certainly don't know what that implication is yet. And maybe if you knew what the implications are, unless I'm mistaken, maybe there would need to be more changes or maybe more additions to that bond. But either way, without that knowledge, I don't know how you as a board can vote without knowing the tax implications to the community. Unless I misunderstood, and somebody please correct me if I misunderstood, but my understanding is you do not know the tax implications at this point as a board.
Rich, would you be kind enough to respond?
Yeah, sure. The process, Mr. Ruck, is for us to understand what the school needs. I can go through a short history of the fact that, you know, our last bond offering was 20 years ago for $25 million, okay? That debt service was paid off 2 years ago. And even though all the equipment, a lot of the equipment, most of the equipment was end of life and failing, the then board did not act on replacing the equipment necessary to run the school. So it was our duty as a board to understand what needs to be done and to make sure that we do everything we can and everything that should be done. We have bond counsel who said, once you have agreement on everything, and we didn't really even we didn't have a consensus, and I think we do tonight, as to a final number, because we didn't have that last piece of the puzzle, Valley View. What what even the final amount would be. We now have that. As part, I kind of shocked by your comment about us not owning up to our fiduciary duty as an operations committee or a board, but we are following the advice of counsel, who is very experienced in this. And the council said, don't talk about the tax impact until you've decided what you're going to do, recommend what you need to do. We will talk to our bond counsel next operations committee meeting and talk to them about what range of possible impacts to the town would be to the taxes in the town. Can't give an exact number because you have to sell the bonds, right? So this will all be part of the education process after we put on the calendar a referendum vote. We are then going to educate the public for everything that we're doing and the reason that we're doing it. It all needs to be done. After that, there will be more concrete information as that process unfolds about the tax impact to the town. But, you know, our fiduciary duty is to see that the schools are well run and that they have what they need to continue to provide our children with an education. I'm very confident to say that the tax burden will be less than what it was 20 years ago with a bond that was $10 million higher with higher interest rates.
Okay, thank you, Rich, for clarifying that. Rich Pepe, do you want to go to the next person?
Yes.
Yes, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, welcome.
Yes.
This is Mariam McDari on Ridge Road. Thank you for everything that you guys presented tonight. It was really informative as a parent. I just had one comment question about quarantining. So it was said that when children are required to quarantine, there's not going to be, they're going to be required to follow what's going on in class on Google Classroom alone, correct? I would just advise in advance that I don't think that's a great idea. As someone with a toddler, last year, my toddler had just colds routinely 4 or 5 times during the year. And every time she had a cold, as a responsible parent, we had to get tested. And for that time, my Bayberry student was outside of school. Now, the reason that wasn't a big inconvenience was because she was allowed to follow on in class with her classmates. But my hesitancy would be that if people had to take time off of work to help their student go through what was going on, just to go through the process of getting a test where most likely they know that their kid isn't sick or they assume that it isn't COVID, they would just skip it and show up at school. I don't think that's a great idea, but I think that's what's going to happen. So if some sort of option for when quarantines are required, if you've been traveling, I'm thinking, you know, post-Christmas or Thanksgiving, people travel. If something could be implemented where people who are want to be responsible and want to quarantine will be able, their children will be able to follow along in the classroom in some way live, that would be great. I think more people would actually be responsible if that option was provided. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rich, are there anyone else waiting in there or physically?
There's nobody here physically, and I don't see any hands raised right now.
Okay, great. Okay, we're gonna move on to
Hold on, somebody just raised their hand if you want to. That's up to
sure.
you. Mr. Guzman, we'll ask him to unmute.
Hi, good evening. I'm John Guzman from 136 Stony Glen Road. And I understand the sex ed curriculum is mandated by the state. I wanted a better understanding of how Watchung will implement this. Personally, I have 2 children in middle schools with no formal exposure to sex education other than the birds and the bees that we have been discussing with them at home. How will Watchung scaffold this for our older students?
I didn't want to interrupt you. Are you
Yeah,
finished? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually have a second part. The other part would be, all of our students are individual to different learning styles. Some students' development ages are not the same as other children's. And how would we teach them? How would we account for the differences in learning ages? Like, just say you have a child that's 10 and one that's 12, the 10-year-old might actually know more than the 12-year-old. How would you handle the 12-year-old? Would you scale it back for them, or would all 12-year-olds be the same format? I'm done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Alexis, I don't know if I'm right with this answer, but I'm thinking that he should contact the principal or his children's teacher regarding those questions, because it's not necessarily really a board. It's not for a board to decide because we don't micromanage and manage the schools. You guys do. So would be the right direction to point that parent in?
That would be a good direction to point them into.
Okay, great. So hopefully that helps. Please definitely contact the principal of the school and the teachers. They would be the ones who could definitely answer that for you. Are there any other questions or comments from the public on agenda items?
Yes, we have one.
Okay, we got one.
Hi, this is Rita Williams, 11 Kappelman Drive, Watchung. Thank you so much for all of the information and upfront descriptions about COVID and going back into the classroom. I didn't hear anything about testing or anything about teachers and staff being vaccinated. So I just was looking to see if there was any information about those 2 things.
Go
I can
ahead,
address that.
George. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Mrs. Williams. Yes. I did talk about Executive Order 253, about the mandate for staff and visitors and volunteers to be vaccinated when on campus. And that's unfolding now. We have a deadline of October 18th that has been issued by the state. As far as testing goes, we're going to continue with, at this point, the same protocols that we had in place last year for testing. When someone is quarantined or has traveled, they'll be responsible for getting a test. That, of course, any of these protocols could change based on need or based on a change in the data that we receive.
Okay, so we're not going to be doing any testing. The district is not going to be responsible directly doing any testing. It's all still self-report and honor code system with the town.
That's correct. There's no on-site asymptomatic screening. That was not recommended to us by our school physician.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Oh, we have a hand raised.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome.
Hello,
Yeah.
good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to get better clarification with regards to holidays. So what is the protocol for petitioning for a day off? So is this now something that the Watchung School Board would have to review and approve, or basically it is a Watchung Hills Regional High School board decision?
I was waiting to see if you were going to come off of mute for that, George, because you're more.
Yeah, I can answer that. This is Harvey. No, it's the decision of the local Board of Education, it's not Watchung Hill's Board of Education that would make the decision for us, but as Mrs. Harvey pointed out during the committee report, that the majority of our curriculum committee reviewed and agreed that we should collaborate with the district. And as I indicated to you in my response to your email earlier this week, out of respect for our families that have kids at both the high school and in the district here, we want to get their feedback and input, and we do our best to remain aligned with the high school calendar.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, Rich, I think there are two more.
One is the person who just spoke. The other is Maria Dalla Maria. We just asked you to unmute, if you can unmute.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Sorry. I'm sorry if I missed this in the beginning, but I was just wondering, during lunchtime, what is the protocol for the kids with masks during lunch and gym? And will they have an opportunity to be outside during the warmer days?
Yes, as I discussed in my presentation, we are going to maximize opportunities to be outside, just like we did at Bayberry in the spring when we had lunch with the lengthened schedule. We also are going to minimize the amount of time that the kids are together in the lunchroom, and also have assigned seats and marked spaces for seating so that we can keep them separate. We're also going to require the kids to put their masks on when they're not actually eating or drinking, just in an effort to keep everyone safe.
Okay, but will they also have an opportunity to not like have a break from the mask, because it will be a long day? So will they have a chance to be outside and get some fresh air?
Yes, we're trying to maximize time outdoors for the students.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to move on to action items. Adam, can you please move administrative items?
Yes, I can. I move item A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. A2, accept action plans for the district goals. And A3, approval of contract with the NJ Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Is there a second?
Second, Joe.
Any discussion?
I have a comment, and I would love to hear anyone else's feedback or comments as well on the action plans for the district goals. As I think we all know, we approved these goals and are now just approving specific action plans suggested by the administration to meet them. So my comment is not at all related to, I guess, the specific action plans, but simply that I like the action plans and I like all the goals. But since, you know, our cycle or calendar of board business in a typical year does have these being formulated and adopted at the end of an academic year, which we did at the end of, in May, sometime at the end of the academic year. In retrospect, for me personally, as a board member, I do feel somewhat regretful that we did not include, maybe in addition to or in lieu of, just in terms of priorities, some academic metrics and goals. I think one of the biggest concerns that everyone has, even if you don't have kids that are still in school, just as a general member of society, is what has such a decrease in instructional time, what impact has it had on our learners and everyone's children? And I've read everything from, the children are very resilient and, nothing gets them down, to this may be generational, setback. So I'm not trying to solve all those big topics, but I guess I just wanted to express, a little concern. And this is nothing to say that I don't think George is aware of all of this. And I know that his principals are as well, and even down to the teachers. I'm sure everyone knows there are going to be challenges. There's going to be reentry issues, but to mitigate as much learning loss as the district can by using things like the iReady benchmark testing, maybe setting goals or trying to find unique ways to do small group instruction, I think you're going to see a real spectrum of students who achieved maybe even more than they would have in a typical classroom for the last 18 months. And just at home, were able to set their own pace and really advance. And then you'll see, the polar opposite, which is what I think everyone fears. So it's just some, thoughts that I had while looking at these goals and preparing to approve them, which I will. It's just a slight concern that, it seems glaringly obvious now as we plan to return to school full time, that there aren't really any specific academic goals for the district. And I think that would be very beneficial, if not to make a goal, like an addendum, to at least hear from the administration periodically of how benchmarking and new strategies can be put in place to mitigate any loss.
Okay, any other discussion? Oh, all right. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, motion's passed.
Michelle, can you please move personnel items?
Sure. I move the following personnel items. B1, appoint mentors. B2, appoint district substitute coordinators. B3, appoint student information system liaison. B4, appoint certificated staff as home instructors. B5, appoint special education leave replacement teacher at Bayberry School. B6, appoint preschool leave replacement teacher, Bayberry School. B7, appoint paraprofessional preschool disabilities program, Bayberry School. B8, appoint paraprofessional autism program, Bayberry School. B9, appoint before and after care staff. B10, appoint Valley View co-curricular. B11, appoint a guidance intern. B12, appoint speech therapist intern. B13, appoint district substitutes. B14, approve unpaid leaves of absence. B15, accept resignation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So I'm the board member that had the question. And being aware, as all of us are, that we don't discuss personnel or hiring in public session, there's really, my hands are tied and I think I'm just going to abstain. But, I will say, listen, our process is what it is. We're having committee meetings 2 days before board meetings, and we're getting minutes and explanation of agenda items, in my case, an hour before. So I had a question about the ESS aides that the district has traditionally used ESS to staff certain positions, many paraprofessionals. I guess 2 are being made district employees. I asked if there was breakage or the opposite, if it was costing us more, and if so, how much. I don't know that the answer can be given in public session, but, you know, I do feel that, you know, we're getting ready for the beginning of school. I know how hectic it is. This is my 3rd year on the board, and it's always a busy time for personnel. Understand the, you know, last minute notice, and I'm not objecting to it, but, you know, we need to fulfill our responsibilities to vote in good conscience on things that we have been made aware of. And in this case, I don't feel that I have. And Michelle, it wasn't B5 and B6, it was B7, B6 and B7. And that's just from the committee minutes that those seem to be the 2 preschool positions that are being made full-time or, you know, district employees rather than ESS aides. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, but I think you had it right when you said you weren't sure if it was B5 and B6. So I'll be abstaining from B6 and B7 unless.
Yeah, I apologize for the misreference on the numbers, Jessica, but I agree. We also have a responsibility to the kids. So I'm glad that these items made the agenda. Thank you for sending your question before the board meeting.
I'm a little unclear. If the question is solely about finance, I don't think we're prohibited from discussing that. Would anybody? I think there's like a, you know, objective answer about costs, which are all public. This is not anything having to do with anybody's performance. So
Then I would presume
George-
Rich Pepe would
Yeah, George or
potentially
Rich could answer that.
Sure, I can speak to the
do
financial.
people agree with me that this is an okay subject to discuss?
I do. I just want to be clear on what the question is. Is it
Yeah.
just, can we afford it? Is it more or less than what we've spent? What is there a specific concern?
I
I'm
think
not clear.
Jessica, I think you were asking about the impact, correct me if I'm wrong, the impact is with regards to benefits or the cost payout for benefits?
That was a secondary question. The first question was simply in committee minutes. It was not even clear. So my very first question in my email to you or the entire committee and administration was, what are the positions that you're talking about? And I assumed, because they both say preschool, those were the 2, B6 and B7.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right. If I could address
okay.
that.
So those were
They are
and so-
positions that we are bringing in-house for the preschool disabilities program and the autism program. And the aides will be working in positions that they were similarly working in before as outsourced employees. But with this program, these 2 programs, where we're serving some of our most vulnerable students, we wanted to have in-district employees. And it's something that we had talked about in the past in committee. We had also brought in an in-house aide over the early spring. And we continue to work towards that to make sure we have, you know, the most capable people for our kids.
But one is a leave replacement. And so that's replacing a full, so in there, the difference is
It's not a,
essentially
not a leave
long-term sub
replacement.
versus.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm talking about the paraprofessionals, not the leave replacement positions. But we did have, as you pointed out, getting ready for school, we've had difficulty, as I reported to the board in the last week, you know, filling some of these vacant spots. And so they were last minute things. And that's why we postponed the committee meeting till the Tuesday before the board meeting so that I could report on some of the candidates. And we had that meeting at the same time that the packet was going out to be posted. So that's why I told everyone that there likely would be updates, but they're fair questions. And Rich Pepe can answer the financial aspects of it. And Rich Buccarelli is correct. And we're not talking about personnel in terms of, we're talking about structure and programs. We're not talking and operating funds. So we are not talking about individual employees. And I wouldn't be able to comment on that.
And if I may, Jessica, I think it's helpful, I think, to everyone to look at that HR1A document that we got in our packet. It really lays it out for everyone as to who's new, who's in maternity leave, so that you can see that.
I mean,
Do you see that?
I'm not going to really dig it up in the moment, Jen. I'm sorry. I had, it's
Okay.
not clear to me. I mean, now I'm even more confused because I thought B6 and B7 were just confirmed by the administration that those are the ESS aides that are transitioning to permanent full-time. And I'm assuming, even though the question has not been answered, that it is incremental cost to the district. And these, I don't know if they're tenured positions. I mean, they do have an impact. They have a financial impact, and they have an impact on, staffing for the future.
So
if these are
maybe
tenured
Rich,
positions.
Rich can answer that. Rich Pepe.
Right. So first of all, I just want to clarify. I think we're actually talking about B7 and B8, and I think that's part of what was confusing, is that we're not sure. But the key is we're talking about two paraprofessionals, both of whom worked in the district in the past as outsourced from ESS, as Mr. Alexis mentioned. We're looking to bring them in. I just want to give a little background on this too. If you go back to our budget process, not from this past year, but from the year before, when we were building the FY21 budget, one of the things that I set out to do was to bring all of our aides in-house. And we very quickly learned that that was completely out of the question from a financial aspect. It was going to be close to an increase of it was something like $500,000. It was just, it's just not
I think it was
possible.
more than that.
So, and that was, those are all estimates. So one of the things that happens is there's salaries. And if we just look at salaries, when we bring them in-house, we actually spend less on salary because we don't pay the upcharge to ESS. However, where we end up spending more is on benefits. And the hard part about benefits is until the person is hired, accepts the position, comes in and fills out their paperwork, we don't know what level of benefits they're taking. And so there's a very huge range of costs for each individual on medical benefits. They can range from a waiver of $4,000 a year all the way up to someone with family benefits whose salary is such that they pay the lowest percent towards their benefits. That could be paying it could cost the district as much as $45,000. Now, a new hire right now has to go into the EHP plan, so they would not be up to the $45,000, but it still could cost the district close to 25, 30 or beyond. So we don't know the actual impact of each individual one. So what we're trying to do is say, well, let's pinpoint where it makes the most sense to at least bring a few in-house to try and best meet the needs of the students. And the reason why it's helpful to have them in-house is when it's our employee, we evaluate them, we train them, we determine what they need as far as training. And so by putting them in these very, very important positions of the preschool and the autism class, it gives us a little more control over the quality that they receive of support from us in preparing to support the children. And I think that's the thinking behind these two being ones that we bring in-house.
Thank you very much. You touched on a lot of what I assumed were the issues, because I distinctly remember over the years factoring the cost of bringing ESS aides in-house. And it was, I recall, Rich, it being $900,000 at one point. Maybe now we've incrementally brought some in. And, to be perfectly honest, this is, part of my instinct to question this was that, are we doing that incrementally? So we'll build up to that 900,000, however much it was. It would have been a shock to the budget and the system to do it all at once, but are we doing it little by little? And if so, how does that really affect? And this isn't even a K-8 position. This is preschool. There's only so much money, and we're a K-8 district. So those were my questions. Those are my concerns, and thank you very much for the information.
Any other discussion?
I'm just wondering if we need any more color on why, George, why you recommended this. I think that would help us all.
Yeah, as I said, we've been working towards bringing some aides in-house, and as Rich also added there, but we felt this was the best move for our students in these programs where there are very special needs. And we have employees that we can bring in-house, and it was recommended to me, and I'm recommending it to the board.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, can we have a roll call, please?
Well, is there a desire to bifurcate the vote? Or vote on each one separately?
I mean, I'll just say.
You can, yeah, you can, Jessica can pick out the item if she wants to abstain.
If I could finish, I was in the middle of a sentence.
I'm
I'll
sorry,
say that
Jessica.
At this
it's
point, if
internet.
George has recommended this, I don't have, a huge reason to disagree with him. And I do believe in following the recommendation of the administration. They're running the schools. I would just want this board to be cognizant of the fact that, we've just talked about asking the members of our community, to vote on a referendum for $15 million that we don't even, we're not that interested in calculating the cost impact, I guess. And,
Well-
we're gonna spend, money here and there. It's just, we've got to watch our pennies. So I'm voting yes for this. I'm not going to split the vote.
This is for, I just
have
want to
some
make it clear
concerns
though,
about-
this is for, now I'm speaking, Jessica, hang on just a second. This is for supporting children with disabilities. So to me, this is not just throwing money around. This is supporting children with special needs. I mean, I appreciate your question on the budgetary impact, but as far as I'm concerned, if I have a child standing in front of me with special needs, I don't know how I vote no to not support giving a child what they need to get a quality education in this town.
If I may, it's the same person, is it not? It's the actual role for the position is being filled by the same person. We are just giving them a permanent job with the district rather than contracting them through a service. In terms of meeting the needs.
But
This isn't a new
correct me if
position.
I'm
It's
wrong, your
being filled by
insinuation
someone
was
through a
that we're just
service.
throwing money around. I don't, that's not what we're doing here. And it's right that George, as far as I'm concerned, George said this is needed in the school district. And as you well know, our job as board members is not to manage the school district, it's to advise, but it's not to manage. And George made the director of special services said this is needed, and we agree.
And we went through a budgeting process, and the administration's done an amazing job finding ways to be more efficient with money. I mean, they've cut where they can, they've combined roles where they can, and it's all with the children in mind and giving them the best experience. And this is all part of that plan that's been in progress for months. And it's been taken into account with the budget. And I love that we're able to do this. Full-time employees are it's always a better experience than having an outside service. I mean, Rich Pepe did a great job explaining that. They're our employee, we control them, we evaluate them, we train them. I mean, also they feel part of the community versus someone from an outside company that's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be here next year, right? We had that issue this past year. We had a temporary aide and they didn't get a full-time job with us, and they left a student high and dry, and it was a terrible experience. And I think this does a good job of not obviously eliminating that risk, but absolutely, giving us a better chance at not having that happen again.
And this is much cheaper than a lawsuit against the district for not being able to support a child with special needs in their education.
Are these tenured positions?
The paraprofessional positions are not tenured positions. No.
Thank you.
I just have one, listen, I can't let this go by. I will not actually let this go by without commenting. These little
Right.
asides that are thrown out that cast aspersions on the work of the operations committee, that apparently we're not that interested in the tax ramifications of a $15 million referendum is entirely untrue. I have told you,
So untrue.
I have told you that we are following the advice of experienced counsel that we have hired, and that is professional and who has told us what the exact process is. I don't want to be told that we do not consider this. We've asked this question very many times. We've asked the advice of bond counsel, and for you to say that we don't care about the tax implications to our constituents is just absolute flat out wrong. And you just throw it out there like, oh, that's a fact. It's not a fact, Jessica.
I couldn't agree more, Rich. Thank you. I have to say that too. I don't know why this is becoming a talking point. It's not. We've cut millions of dollars from the original projects. Clearly we care. And very clearly in our list, in the schedule that you've seen, Jessica, it shows where the tax implication analysis is done and disseminated to the public. There will be months of it.
No, there won't. Look at it. Look at the date on the schedule. Sorry.
It's not to you. It's to the voters. To the voters, they get to choose. We are putting forth, with the help of the administration, exactly what we think is best for the educational environment. By the way, a lot of this is just things that need to get done to continue to keep the schools open. About 2 million or something, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, is actually educational enhancements. Over 10 million of this is just to keep the lights on. And we've cut as much as we think is necessary. We've taken your advice and we've cut where you've suggested, and we've taken all this to heart. And so now on the board, to the board, it is, do we believe that this is what the school district needs? Yes or no? We vote. If we vote yes, then we go to the public and say, this is what your impact is. This is why we believe in it. You go to the polls in December and vote yes or no. That's it.
I just wanted to say
everybody can have their opinion on the merits of the referendum. What I really take offense at is the assertion, as a cast aside, that we apparently don't care about the tax ramifications to the public, which is what you just said.
I'm not sure I used the word care. I'm sorry. We can check. But I did not say we don't care. I said we're not interested.
Okay, and see what you said. Okay.
Okay.
And then maybe there'll be an apology.
I just wanted to say that when I was in the HR committee meeting, that this was absolutely something that the administration brought to us. And we obviously asked questions about these positions. And obviously one of our questions was, can we afford this? Do we have this in the budget? Because we want to make sure that we're financially responsible in our community and our budget. And the administration said, absolutely. So I just wanted to make that clear. This wasn't any board members bringing this or putting this on an agenda. This was from the administration. And like everyone has said here, our job as board members is to consider the recommendations from our administration and to question, maybe advise, but we need to support our administration. And I just wanted to make that extremely clear, that those questions were asked and this was brought to us from the administration.
And Jessica has the right to abstain on the vote, just like she did on the June 10th meeting when we voted to appoint a one-on-one assistant for a blind or severely impaired child. So she can abstain on this if she wants.
I've already said that I'm voting yes.
Well, I heard abstain before, but I'm just saying you can abstain just like you did when we appointed an assistant for another disabled student. You can abstain. That's your right.
Michelle, so I guess Rich can object to my choice of words when comparing spending, expenditures.
Okay, point of order. I would like to end this discussion and let's go for a roll call, please. Thank you. Rich Pepe?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's pass.
Okay, can we move to, hold on, I'm getting there. Operations, Rich, can you please move operations items?
Yes, I'd like to move the following items. Item C1, approve payment of bills. Item C2, approve transfer of funds. Item C3, accept financial reports. Item C4, approve preschool tuition rates. Item C5, approve before and after care program. Item C6, approve joint transportation agreement with Morris Union Jointure Commission. Item C7, approve shared services agreement with Watchung Hills Regional High School. Item C8, approve transportation jointure with Watchung Hills Regional High School, which is the same but different matters. Item C9, award contract for professional services with DRG for crawl space ventilation project. Item C10, approve service providers. And item C11, approve professional travel and related expenses.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Jen.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion's pass.
Okay, Jen, can you please move curriculum items?
All right. D1, approve revised curriculum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Joe, can you please move policy items?
Sure. First, if I may, I'd like to bifurcate the vote. The reason to separate E1 and then we can do E2 and E3. It's just for procedural reasons. In E1 policy 031 bylaws, policies and regulations, a second read, which would allow us on first vote to do all of the abolishments in E3. So we should do E1 first, which will then make 031 effective to allow us to do one vote for abolishment of policies, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. So is there a second for E1?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Joe,
Oh.
can you move the rest?
Sure. So now E2, approve policies for first reading, and E3, abolish policies.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Motions pass.
Okay, and under board business, we have the action plan. Oh, let me see, which I don't know. Jessica, can you please move the action plan item?
I move A1, accept action plans for the board goals.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
right, Mrs. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed Mr. McDonald. Sorry,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Posehn,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
and Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Is there any other board business to discuss?
I just want to make a quick comment. I meant to do this earlier. It's been great working with Dave Walker on the operations committee. He comes to every meeting. He's been prepared, extremely knowledgeable, extremely helpful, had a lot of input in the projects for the referendum. And we'll miss him and wish him lots of luck in his next job.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Second that.
Okay, we're going to move on to comments from the public. Please just remember, this could be about any item. Please just remember to state your name and address before speaking, and please raise your virtual hand if you're online so we know to unmute you. I don't see any hands raised. So we will adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A
Second.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.